Greetings from John Knox Presbyterian Church. We're glad that you could be a part of this today. We're looking at the Old Testament, Genesis 45, 1 through 15. But know that last week we were beginning the story of Joseph back in chapter 37. So today we get to go through 8 action-packed chapters to see the ups and downs of Joseph's life. He went from his father's favorite with big dreams to being stripped and sold into slavery. His brothers dipped Joseph's coat into goat's blood so their father would assume that he was killed by wild beasts while protecting the flock, a family secret hidden from their own father, who was overcome with grief. Meanwhile, in Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, the captain of Pharaoh's guard. Potiphar noticed Joseph's ability and promise and put him in charge of the business and household. Joseph was handsome, and he attracted some attention from Potiphar's wife. When Joseph refused her advances, she sought revenge by setting him up and accusing Joseph of violating her. Potiphar threw Joseph into the dungeon. During his long incarceration, the warden came to trust Joseph and gave him oversight of other prisoners. One of these inmates was the chief cupbearer to Pharaoh, and another was the head baker to Pharaoh. Noticing these two were downcast, Joseph inquired as to what was wrong. Strange dreams were disturbing their sleep, so Joseph offered to help them interpret the dreams, discerning what God was trying to reveal to them. The cupbearer's dream involved him filling his master's cup with grapes from 3 different vines. Joseph claimed that in 3 days he would be released and restored to his position. The baker dreamed he had 3 white baskets on top of his head, and the food on the topmost was eaten by the birds. Joseph correctly predicted that in 3 days he would be hanged. While the cupbearer was freed, he failed to keep his promise to Joseph to intercede on behalf of Pharaoh. 2 years later, when Pharaoh was disturbed by dreams which none of the courtly officials could interpret, the cupbearer remembered how a Hebrew slave had correctly interpreted his own dreams. Pharaoh summoned Joseph, who was bathed, shaved, and provided clean clothes to appear before Pharaoh. Pharaoh shared his dream of 7 fat cows coming out of the river to graze in the meadow, followed by 7 emaciated cows, which devoured the fat cows while still remaining thin. He had seen 7 ears of wheat on one stalk and 7 withered ears that devoured the fat one. Joseph claimed that God was preparing him for the 7 years of plenty, followed by 7 years of extreme famine. Joseph advised him to collect 1/5 of the crop in the good years to store as reserve for the lean years. Impressed, Pharaoh elevated Joseph to a position just below Pharaoh with many privileges, including an Egyptian name and the hand of the high priest's daughter in marriage. After 13 years of being a slave, at the age of 30, Joseph, the Hebrew, was governor of the strongest nation in the region. Under Joseph's direction, officials gathered 1/5 of each crop for the next 7 years, storing them in all of the cities. When the famine hit, crops were sold to those whose supplies were depleted, with money, livestock, or land being accepted as payment. Joseph went on to reform the nation, distributing free land and seed to peasants in return for 1/5 of their crops as tax to the Pharaoh. Meanwhile, in Canaan, his family of origin was in need of food. His father, Jacob, sent all but the youngest son, Benjamin, to buy food from the powerful governor in Egypt. Joseph didn't reveal his identity, instead accusing them of being spies and locking them up for 3 days. On the 3rd day, he released them with corn for their families, provided that they would return with their youngest brother, and one would remain in Egypt with Joseph. As the brothers discussed this without an interpreter present, they wondered if their present problem wasn't due to the evil they had once done to their brother Joseph. Whatever happened to him? Joseph had to turn away to conceal his emotions. The second oldest was bound and left behind. When the others reached the inn that night and opened a sack to get corn for the animals, they discovered money that they thought they had spent for the crops. It was still there. Upon their return home, they discovered each sack still had the money that they thought they had spent. They told their father all about what had transpired and how Simeon was detained, and Benjamin's presence was requested. At first, Jacob refused to let Benjamin go, but he yielded when the wheat was used up. Joseph graciously welcomed them all, asking about their father and inviting them into his home with a midday meal. Simeon joined them, and gifts for Joseph were presented, and Benjamin was introduced to what actually was his brother. The brothers were astonished that they were seated in the exact order of their ages. How did anyone know that? The brothers set out for home, in good spirits and with supplies of grain. This time not only money, but also the divining cup were hidden in Benjamin's sack. Joseph sent a steward after them, accusing them of theft. Joseph then scolded them and insisted on Benjamin staying behind as a retainer. But the older brother, Judah, pleaded for his brother, saying how his father couldn't get along without him. Joseph was so touched that he revealed his true identity to his brothers. Joseph, who had been sold into slavery, forgave his brothers for everything, declaring God worked through it all, making him lord over Egypt in order to save his family. He told his brothers there would be 5 more years of hunger, so they should bring their father and the household and flock to settle where Joseph could take care of them all. Forgiveness. Back in the Old Testament, teaches us how to forgive today. May God be present with you all. Amen.